This is Inside Outlands. I am your host, Nat Ryle, and joining me today is CLX, and as Owen likes to call you, Outland's first player. How's it going, man?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Thanks for having me. By the way, I like the transition from your normal chatting voice to your podcast voice. Very professional.
It should be the same.
it's a phone voice.
Yeah, how's it going? I brought you on. I kind of been saving you in my back pocket. So if the message was out of the blue, it really wasn't. I've been thinking of having you on for a long time, but I thought this would be a good conversation. You've got a lot of history on Outlands and beta and live, of course. You're probably famous now for the dev debriefs where people get to hear your voice. So
yeah, sadly, it's more my out of game actions than my in game actions, which is the opposite way around to what I'd want it really. But yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I don't do shit in game. Like I don't do anything in game. I make the boss runs with Beard Brothers. I go on our boss runs, and then I sit in guild hall. I sit at my house, and I'm like the worst player. I just show up for like the big shit. And
sadly, I think I've always been guilty of this on every server, but more so on Outlands because of Discord. I can be on Discord or talking about UO, so I probably spend 3 times as much time talking about it as I do playing, which is a sad state of affairs.
I don't think so. I think the good sign of a game, or at least a game that's in your conscience, is you're always thinking about it and you're planning your next step.
Yeah.
Games like Eve and UO are really good about that, where you're just interacting with the game while not being in the game, and there's a lot that UO has for that.
There's something about UO that the way it plays creates a kind of proper community and all the guild politics, and I've always really enjoyed that side of things.
Oh yeah. And here lately, I've been wrapped up in politics. Maybe not firsthand, but I get to hear about all of it in our officer chat and what's going on between in game.
Yeah, I mean, BB are now kind of a factor in the PvP community, so it's been a bit of a change for your group.
Oh yeah, for sure. We've grown. We're still growing. We're still a bunch of idiots, but it's been a lot of fun to see it all kind of evolve to where we are today on the Shard. But before we get to where we're at now, let's talk about what got you into UO. Like, what's your original history?
So you shouldn't ask me these questions. I think I like talking about it far too much. So yeah, I didn't start as early as some people. A friend of mine, so I was 16 or 17 at the time. A friend of mine that lived in the same village as me picked up the game and played it on the trial month, and I kind of sat and watched him play it a few times. And this must have been very close to the launch of the game, and I for months had this game in the back of my mind, like how amazing it was seeing someone casting a gate and being able to travel through it. And I guess probably somewhere between 6 and 9 months later, I'd finally managed to pester my parents to allow me to spend the money from my part-time shop worker job on getting an internet connection, because there just wasn't one in the house at this point in time. And it was all kind of with UO in my mind.
And 97's dial-up and shit.
You've no idea how backwards the UK was at that point in time as well. So your options for a internet connection was pay per minute. So my connection allowed me 8 free hours a week. For I think, if I remember rightly, something around £40. So I guess at the time that was probably $60 a month. I could access the internet for 8 hours at a time. Like it just when I think I'm in front of a computer for 8 to 12 hours at a time, including work now. Different world.
Yeah, we had Prodigy here in the States. I think that was by the hour, and then AOL, they had the same thing, but they came out with their unlimited. And I just pestered my parents. Okay, Muji Unlimited. I know it's like $5 more a month, but then I can play this. I was playing MUDs. I could play this MUD for, way more hours than what I currently can.
Yeah, it's almost unthinkable now. So when I first got it, I didn't actually play UO first. I knew a couple of people that were playing Diablo. So I ended up playing that for 3 or 4 months, and then the people that I played that with moved on to UO, so I naturally kind of migrated with them. But ridiculously at this time, probably says a lot about me, but it turns out there's actually quite a few Outlands players that made the same mistake. So I ended up playing on Pacific, which, as we all know now, is obviously West Coast US, and I'm obviously very British, so I have no idea what my 28k modem ping-wise was giving me to Pacific, probably 500 or 600. But at the time, I didn't even know what ping was. No, I had
Did you
no
know
idea.
then what was going on, or did you just think the game? That's how the games are supposed to be.
I had absolutely no idea. I guess I didn't even have a horse, so I just walked around. You don't notice any kind of lag. There was a worldwide player base. So I was talking to Vanson in Discord the other day. So he's, I think, quite a well-known Outlands player. Turns out he also played Pacific in the same time period. I know there's a couple of Majestic people from the Majestic Guild here on Outlands. They're Danish. They also played on Pacific around this time. So it was clearly a common mistake that we just didn't understand latency or ping or connections, or in some cases even geography.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's I obviously did not play on live. But were you there? How long did you stay on live?
So I played Pacific from sometime around summer '98. I think the receipt on my UO box was still legible a few years ago, and it said I purchased the game in May '98. So I guess that was just before Second Aid. I played on Pacific for something like a year, possibly slightly longer, but with my 8 hours a week connection, you can imagine how much of a factor I was in anything there. I was in a guild of quite a major guild. Obviously, people I was linked to from Diablo had got me into this, so I played with them. But I had a warrior character. If I saw a red, I was absolutely petrified. Going into the seat, no night sight, hearing the noises of the leeches, absolutely terrifying. Still with me to this day. That's kind of, I think, the thing that initially hooked me into this game. And yeah, so it wasn't until I moved servers a few times that I really started getting into PvP. I even had a connection that enabled it. After Pacific, I played on Siege Perilous, which I still think is kind of the best UO experience on the OSI servers.
Yeah, I like the concept of Siege Perilous a lot. I've actually tried it recently. It's just really dead. There's no one there, but I love.
Yeah, I don't even understand. Sorry, so yeah, am I right in thinking they've added all the other facets to it, but with a Felucca rule set?
Yeah, I think it's still the same. Like, you can have one character only, so you're not allowed to have multiple characters. You have to have 2 accounts to have more than one character on there.
Yeah, it was Siege that first made me start paying for more than one account, because you just couldn't manage with only one character, really, unless you were part of a large guild.
Yeah, it's probably worse now with no one playing it.
Yeah, I really don't understand how anyone still plays OSI. I know everyone had their patch that was the cutoff point for them. There was a few for me. I thought Trammel was it, but I was quickly dragged back into the game. I thought AOS was it. Again, dragged back in quickly. Ended up absolutely loving it. There was some fantastic PvP over Harrowers and things like that. I think the final straw for me was when they added all the samurai stuff into the game. I kind of hung on for another year or so after that. I couldn't take it. In fact, I do remember that they added elves and gargoyles, and that was the final straw for me. So I guess kind of like 2007, 2008, maybe.
That's a hell of a run, man. That's you basically stayed for like the entire span of the game. There's really not been much added since 07.
Oh, really?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so
the High Seas expansion. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I moved from Siege to the Europa server. Obviously, finally realizing I need to play a server near to home in 2001, and I think I finally got broadband in summer 2002, which is when I could kind of start really getting into the PvP, which is what I'd always been interested in UO. It was kind of semi unachievable for me up until this point. Playing from Europe on dial up, my options were pretty much limited to stealth characters, which I really enjoyed playing on Siege. In the dungeons there with no gate and recall, you could actually kind of be competitive on that kind of character.
Hey, solo player, would you? Because like here, all those PVM damage multipliers don't really work. Oh, you just would hunt down people that are low, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I wasn't always PKing. I was, to start off with, my kind of UO history up until 2001 was as a anti PK and being involved in those kind of groups. But yeah, stealthing's much more suitable for catching out unarmed PVMers than anything else, really.
Yeah, I love the stealth play. Oh, reason why I picked stealth on Outlands though is just that I can stealth up and AFK, so it works.
Right. Yeah, if you need
kids, I got.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's enough of a distraction when I'm being called down by the girlfriend. I can't imagine when you've got kids in the background as well, how you have to just abandon your character in the middle of a fight.
Yeah, I've thought about doing the tamer build and tearing up command suits and all that, and I just think I might farm gold more, but I'm just going to lose aspect, really quick because I got to get this kid this or hop off and go do this.
Yeah, I guess I'm quite lucky. I get to work from home fairly frequently, and Discord can drag me into UO, which is quite dangerous. But yeah, my evenings tend to be fairly free. As long as I can convince the girlfriend I'm going to spend some time with her of an evening, I can get a good few hours of solid interrupted UO time in.
That's another battle entirely. It's bouncing.
I guess it's quite rare for someone of our generation, right? 38 years of age, and I still managed to be able to be a child for a good few hours an evening and mess around in UO.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday was my son's birthday, and we're chatting about what it was like when we were 14 because he's turning 14. And it's like, man, we were super obsessed with video games. My brother was like, shit, we're 30 something. We're still obsessed. Like nothing's changed.
Yeah. And I guess if it hasn't by this age, it probably isn't going to change for us, is it really? This is it now. No. We're still going to be playing UO, probably still going to be playing Outlands in 10 years time.
I wish this is for sure the longest I've been into a game. I think since EVE Online, and after EVE Online, I just hopped and hopped and hopped and hopped for years. So being here 8 months is ridiculous for me.
Yeah, same for me. I've since I left OSI, I've tried a couple of free servers. Even tried running a free server at one point in time, but none of them ever lasted past 6 months. I think it's kind of massive credit to Owen and Lucius and Expo what they've created. That it's one, kept everyone's attention long enough, and two, it's been run professionally enough that it's been free of the kind of drama that tends to drive a lot of players away from other servers.
Yeah, I've seen that, not necessarily with UO, but in other private shard communities or emulator communities where just the admins just completely collapse. Either go AFK or it's some other dumb drama that you're not on the know of, some kind of a discourse that's happening between them.
Yeah, Owen's a machine.
Absolute luckily machine. None of that's happened here.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it as well as having his own full-time job. It's incredibly impressive. I said to him a few months ago, he's basically now a qualified project manager, a qualified community manager. He can start adding all this to his CV.
Yeah, I actually don't know what he does for a living, but he could easily get a different job.
Yeah. From what I know, it's not related industries. So he's he's clearly got some skills that he wasn't aware of previously.
Yeah. I mean, I think they all have jobs. So it's definitely a part-time endeavor for him. You couldn't tell that though. Like
no, agreed. Yeah, sorry, I kind of jumped us around a bit there. So yeah, going back to when I kind of really got into PvP, that was on Europa, just towards the end of the Renaissance era. And that was when I really kind of made the shift from anti-PK to PKing, which was kind of perfectly timed for published 16 patch, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with.
No, I'm not.
So through it's quite funny actually now you see a lot of people talking in very kind of nostalgic terms about the Renaissance era, but I think that's more related to free servers that they've played since without travel. Because my recollections of Renaissance outside of Siege are very, very negative, really. Kind of communities chopped in half, the map duplicated, which just seems like the most incredibly short-sighted experience by OSI. Short-sighted, lazy, and Felucca was just a wasteland. Hearing people kind of pine for this era is very, very strange to me, because there was no one around. Europa in 2001 when I moved there, I'd be surprised if there was 100 people playing actively. So
you're lazy is exactly it. That is one of the most lazy design choices probably in a game ever, I would think.
It felt like it was done to kind of punish PvPers and PKers. It was like, we're going to take everyone away and leave you in this wasteland.
Well, from one perspective, yes. I think from a perspective that someone that loves Trammel, no. It's just but reason why I like these living game worlds is that they find a way to have us all coexist, and the best games are the one that accomplish that the best. And maybe like pre-Trammel, whatever you would say, isn't the best, where it's just completely lawless and chaotic. But surely they could have done something to appease all the players.
I have absolutely no problem with Trammel as a concept. Absolutely no problem. If they had have implemented it where it was a different landmass with lower resources, I would have had absolutely no problem, because it was clear that the majority of players didn't enjoy being PK'd and griefed. That's that's fair. You can't blame anyone for that. No one plays a video game to get bullied, which is effectively what was happening to people.
Yeah, that's the modern take on this. Is more risk, you get more reward.
Yeah.
So that's what they do, is they dangle the carrot to get those players into the dangerous areas, and that's where the PK happens. UO definitely could have done that. I don't know why they didn't, but it's just a pretty young era in a game where, like you mentioned earlier, the gate, you saw someone cast a gate and they want to try it out. You know how amazing that is today, that you can cast a gate and teleport anywhere in the map? Like, games don't do that now.
This game is a work of absolute genius, and it still blows my mind that they created it in 1997. And it sounds like they created it in just 18 months or so as well. Unbelievable work of absolute genius.
Yeah. So I don't know where Outlands is. I guess it's like a weird hybrid of UOR and UO Second Age, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think people get confused because it's predominantly Second Age mechanics as far as PvP goes. But I don't think you can really put it into one of those brackets. It's certainly not UOR as far as PvP mechanics go. It's tried to implement some templates from that era, successfully in some cases, although they play very differently. Like a Scribe Mage is very viable here in a group situation, but plays nothing like a Scribe would in UOR, for example.
Right. I guess what was a Scribe Mage like in UOR? Do you remember?
So spells like Protection worked very differently, so it'd help you or make it harder for you to be disturbed during casting. I mean, the main reason pure mages were viable in UOR was whereas on a server where you heal through poison, you don't have you're not going to kill anyone with spells alone. Basically, is a very, very simplistic way of putting it. Second Age, you need to have a weapon to kill someone solo. In UOR, pure mages were better than weapon mages, and it's quite funny for me actually. And another reason I sometimes laugh when I hear people talking so nostalgically about Renaissance is the era I grew up in UO, just before Renaissance released. The 2.5 years leading up to it, insta hit and precasting, and what sometimes is correctly or incorrectly called tank mages were the king. And all of the PvPers, when that was taken away with them, 100% of PvPers were completely against it. And I was kind of an outsider looking into this community. I hadn't even played a mage at this point in time. But feedback about Renaissance was universally terrible from a PvP mechanics perspective. So it's really funny now to hear people talking in such glowing terms about it. It's very strange how time can change things.
Well, because of my podcast, I can talk about whatever I want. And UO Renaissance, I think, was the server before this one that seemed to get a lot of popularity. I think it's still popular now, which is weird because they don't have Trammel, obviously, which is what Renaissance has. It's an era accurate with more features and no Trammel,
right?
So Fluke only. So there's definitely a large player base out there that likes those mechanics.
Yeah, well, interestingly as well, I think it's turned out that the majority of players on Outlands are Renaissance players, as in the era rather than the server. I'm not really sure what that is. A lot of the second age players that were around in beta left quite quickly afterwards. But I noticed a comment actually yesterday where someone said the second age player base has always been very fickle, and servers have come and gone very quickly. Whether that's potentially an age related thing, people that are into second age are, hitting 40 now. People that played Renaissance have both had more recent free servers, and it was a more recent era on OSI. So perhaps they aren't all at that point of having kids and a family and everything yet. So there's just more players left from that era.
Yeah. So I don't have any tie to any era. So I'll just say that my like what I like in a PvP game is where they're just options. I have a lot of experience with Darkfall, and one of the big downsides of Darkfall is it's the one build Darkfall. Everyone just runs the same thing.
And that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, they like to say you can make your decision, but no, it's the everything build. You have to have everything. Which is kind of what a tank mage is. That's really what a tank mage is. It's the hybrid build.
Yeah. I kind of fall on the opposite side of it to you. Whereas the most important thing to me is that there's balance, and the more template choices that you have, the harder it is to have some kind of balance.
Yeah, I like there to be archers and mages and hybrids and all of them just doing their thing, and you're not pigeonholed into the one build.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe you can talk about how Outlands is handling all of that, or where they're going.
I think Outlands has done a fantastic job when you consider the limitations of the second age rule set. I think I can be quite hard on Luthier sometimes. I think simple frustration with things not being exactly how I would like them, but I think he's done a fantastic job with making more templates viable in the era that it's set mostly in. So an Archer Mage is, as a general choice, is on a par with a Swords Mage, which generally on par servers it's either one or the other. Whereas it really is a 50-50 mix here. Like Swords is marginally better in a 1v1 situation. Archer is better in a group situation. He's also managed to make Scribe Mages viable. Parry is a viable choice for mages. Alchemy is a viable choice. And you can do all sorts of things with decks. It's like some of the templates people are running here just wouldn't be viable elsewhere. To my mind, it's potentially not a good thing, the amount of variance that there is. I think, taking healing at 40 or 60 here with no anatomy is a really good choice.
Interesting. Why is that, you think?
So normally, I think the formula for healing and anatomy is the same here, but when you take damage on OSI and every other previous free server that I've played, your bandages would slip, so they would either fail or heal less hit points on completion. So here you can, with 40 healing, I believe you can do 25, 30 HP bandages. So that's, for expending 40 points, that's a fantastic return.
And it's just something you run in the background. I guess you get a little,
Yeah. You'll find a lot of people will run that in faction struggle. It's a fantastic choice for faction struggles, which is a different type of PvP. It's almost kind of its own genre, really. But yeah, I think there's probably a little bit too much choice, and it could do with tightening up slightly to make PvP better all round. But like you say, I need to be aware of the other side of the debate. People like to be able to theory craft different templates, try out different things. And I guess I have to look at the fact, I have five PvP characters here, so I clearly like the change as well, the choice.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of mage PvPers out lately too. I'm not sure. Maybe people are finding pets and combinations they like in PvP, or there's just so much to experiment there with their abilities.
Tamers, do you mean? Sorry.
Yeah, tamers. Yeah, tamers.
Yeah, don't talk to me about this.
Yeah, I mean, no, I want to hear what you. I know they have changes coming, but
yeah,
the only thing I've heard is people don't like having to stam up through a bunch of pets.
So yeah, well, so when I really did get heavily into PvP in UO, kind of going back in time a little bit again, I was kind of I started a guild on the Europa server that ended up being probably the premier PvP PK guild, sort of 2001 to 2004, 2002 maybe onwards. And we primarily were a dungeon-based guild around champion spawns and things like that. And I kind of thought of myself as a dungeon PvP specialist, using the spawns to my advantage, dealing with the tamers that would be doing the champion spawns and things like that. But it plays very, very differently on Outlands. So the places that you encounter tamers is the same, dungeons, because obviously that's where people are. People are farming and bosses. But pets are definitely stronger here because of the special abilities. Now, I have frequent debates about this with fellow PvPers, and I think the majority are in agreement with me, but I do see comments from people whose opinions I respect saying, it's just a case of learning how to deal with the tamers. They're not that overpowered. It's just people I respect, so I can't completely discount what they're saying, but I find that the pet special moves, the damage they can stack, is too much for enjoyable PvP, especially when you combine it with the location that you're fighting, which is Outlands dungeons, which have Outlands monsters, which make for really, really fun PvM, and I wouldn't want to change that for a second. But I think it makes the PvP far too random, and it's gone far beyond the point of using spawn and line of sight and plenty of other tricks to your advantage. I think it makes PvP really quite random and unsatisfying. But the good thing about Outlands is
some of that makes it sound like it's better. But then you say it's satisfying at the end. It's like, oh, you're better.
No, it's I have to state again, I'm a very, very average player that's lucky to be carried by some very, very good players. So, anything I say has to be taken with that context in mind. Better players than me can deal with the dungeons and the pets here more favorably than I can. But I feel things are quite often out of my hands. Like, I can do absolutely everything right in a fight, and I will get hit by a 50 HP, hit by a phoenix or whatever else, or a mob will lock me in place for 10 seconds whilst 5 people hit me. These are just things that didn't really happen on OSI, at least not in the last few years that I played. But the great thing about Outlands is there's so many options for PvP. You don't need to engage in this if you want, but I don't need to step inside a dungeon ever. There's still plenty of PvP. Corpse Creek, faction strolls, just walking around the Overland. There's people everywhere. I went on a little PK run with a guildmate of mine earlier today, and that's not something I do on a regular basis. I find PK fairly unsatisfying compared to actual PvP.
Oh, so we got to dive into that for sure.
Yeah.
What's the difference there? Like, what's the difference that you see anyway?
So to me, using earlier on as an example, first 5 to 6 people we found died in seconds, didn't fight back.
Sounds like me.
It's not challenging or satisfying for us. Yeah, we get their loot, but I'm lucky enough to be wealthy on this server that I don't need people's loot particularly, and I've just wreck someone's day, and it's someone that might not log in and play again because they've just been killed with 30k's worth of items on them, which could mean a lot to them. But yeah, the first guy we found was at the Lyceum. I'm sure you know the location. And
The in Mausoleum, you said, or
no, the Lyceum. I'm possibly not pronouncing it correctly. It's where there's a lot of treasure map locations. There's like Minotaurs there. It's Overland.
oh, Overland. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, well, he for
Yeah.
sure does not want to be PK'd because you go to Overland spawns to avoid that shit. So you are bad, sir.
So the guy just stood there and said, "Are you for real? I'm new." And if I'd been solo, I would have spared the guy, but I'm not going to insist that my guildmate shares my morals. And sadly, we tried to resurrect him, but I think he just logged off either angrily or disappointedly, and that's kind of why I don't really enjoy PKing. Especially when I've been involved in Outlands for coming up 3 years now, scarily.
Yeah,
I feel
I don't
killing the thing that I love.
I don't. I mean, I don't know. I go get 20 sets of gear and I put it in my bank or my shelf before my shelf in my chest, and when that would happen, I would just go regear and go back out, and it wouldn't be a big deal. But I don't. Maybe where you're at on character progression, it can hurt more. But people that quit over something like that, like you're mostly in the wrong game. But
Yeah.
it's definitely a balance between like how often that happens. So if that happened to me 2 times a day, I don't know what my limit is for when I just log off and play another day. But
yeah, it kind of goes back to what we said earlier. People don't play this game to be bullied, and they're not choosing to engage in PvP. And although I 100% support the position of PKs and the fact that people should be able to be PK'd, I'm not sure I particularly feel comfortable adding to it that much.
Gotcha. So you PvP, then you mean fighting someone that wants to fight back?
Someone that is flagged to me, so their character's orange, or it's grey, or it's red.
So how in Outlands are you seeking that content? Are you going to bosses because that's kind of an invitation to engage with it? Are you
I've built I've built a character specifically for dungeon PvP. So after I learned very quickly that taking my swords and archmages into dungeons was a painful experience. So I've got a peacemaking mage that I use for group dungeon fights.
Oh, that sounds awful. You're just doing that so you don't have to deal with the mobs while you're
keep the mobs off you, and as soon as you see a tamer, piece their pets.
Okay. Yep.
It's actually really effective in a group. It's obviously completely useless solo. But I'm not going into dungeons solo on a red anyway. So I've people like Blacklisted that can PK solo successfully. I've got a huge amount of respect for their abilities, but I wouldn't put myself through that pain any day.
Yeah, he's very he likes to portray himself as humble, but I've watched a lot of his streams, and there's a dedication that goes to his play style for sure.
Yeah, he's a good player. He might not be the best 1v1 PvPer on the server, but he's clearly a very good player.
Yeah, you just would never get him to admit that.
But yeah, which is great. I mean that's a big part of it. I'm much more happy to give people respect and credit, and I think this goes for most people in the community. Someone like Gray or Pax Remain get a great deal more respect than someone like Vuitton because of their attitude. His attitude stinks. Theirs is fantastic. So people are happy to acknowledge them as the best PvPers on the server, and he probably belongs in the same category just on his game abilities. But his attitude means he'll never ever be considered or remembered as one of the greats. Sadly,
I challenge anyone to watch a Blacklisted stream and then not just immediately want to go learn and check it out and get involved that scene. He's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, he's good to watch. I have to say, although his stream and BXB Milk stream, although my guild is kind of the avowed enemies of his guild at the moment, his streams are really good watch. I think it brings a lot of people to Outlands. If you logged into Outlands to check it out for the first time and watch either of those guys' streams, you'd be desperate to get involved and get playing, I think.
Yeah, BXB Milk is doing crazy stuff with stealing and the whatever shenanigans he's up to. Yeah, that's fun to watch too.
I tuned into his stream. I don't know. We're probably talking 3 or 4 months ago now. This year's just flying by, and I was just kind of I'd just woken up, just looking for something to entertain me while I ate breakfast really, and he kind of recalled around the server with a group for an hour solid, and they just found action every single place they went. I thought it was possibly the best advert for Outlands you could have seen. They fought 4 or 5 different groups in 7 or 8 different locations.
Yeah, and these guys get like these odd stalkers, these Twitch stalkers that will like anytime they're on, they just go pester them. That's another part of Twitch streaming.
Yeah, I kind of like that though. That people will put that level of dedication into it.
Yeah. I've got a buddy that I brought to the game, and he got really into the RP. So he was doing orc things, playing with Bloodrock Clan, and he was a big streamer. And all the sniping, he was like, "That's it. I'm just done streaming." And then a couple weeks later, he was kind of done playing. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how bad it is here. It's
yeah.
always bad,
I think there's quite a bit of it on Outlands. At least attempted stream sniping. Anyway.
Yeah, or using it as an intel tool. Where's Blacklisted? Where's Milk? Where's where's this guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think the dungeons are interesting here because the gates make it very, very easy to avoid any kind of combat if you like.
Yeah, we could talk about that real quick. So the gate mechanics isn't this way on every shard, right? So the way the gate layout here.
So if I'm right in thinking, this was a IPY2, so Import LM2 mechanic. So 2011, I believe that server was around, maybe 2010. Yeah, and I don't think it's been used anywhere else except for Outlands. I mean, I know Luthien is kind of a big admirer of IPY servers. They're kind of what influenced him to get into coding, even in the first place. I could be wrong on that, but it's at least what influenced him to get involved in UO coding. So a lot of features from IPY2 are the basis of Outlands features. So in general, on most UO servers, including OSI, with the exception of Siege Perilous for the whole of its history, and then every other server after AOS. Outside of that, you could always recall and gate into dungeons.
Okay, anywhere in the dungeon, or
yeah, anywhere. So there was basically any. So you'd mark runes at mob spawns basically. So you'd have a rune in a rune book that would say like Poison Elemental, Shame, and you could recall straight to that spot.
If I ever play another shard, I will never get used to that because at this point I'm like, Outlands is my only UO experience really. So this is normal to me, but that sounds insane. So someone can drop on me anywhere. Like I could be at a spawn, and I guess that's how Overland works now.
But you could also press your recall macro to escape. So it's kind of swings and roundabouts, really.
That's true, yeah.
So on Siege, you couldn't recall or gate into dungeons. I mean, recall didn't work at all on that server. You could only gate anywhere, and you couldn't use either in dungeons. So that was quite an interesting thing. So like guilds would actually like control dungeons. You had this kind of like element of territorial control. If you controlled the entrance to the dungeon, you could control the dungeon. So obviously Deceit and Shame were always the 2 most lucrative dungeons. So early on Siege, there was big PK guilds that completely controlled those 2 dungeons. I mean, Akasha was part of one of those 2 guilds actually. It's where I kind of first know him from. His guild, Undead Lords, which I think he mentioned on his little podcast with you. They controlled Deceit alongside the Shadow Clan Orcs, and they completely had the dungeon locked down.
Yeah, you can do that here. Not many do it. I think you're seeing Sup try with it's succeeding a lot of times with Ossuary, the Guardians of Ossuary and pay tribute and all that. But you're not really, you don't see that much.
Yeah, it's more difficult to do here with the gates and the fact that you can actually recall into the gates at the start of the first 2 levels in most dungeons. Whereas obviously on Siege you had to walk in through the entrance 3 or 4
Okay.
reds stood there was going to stop anyone coming in without like a concerted push from a group. And even if you push them out, you're then trapped inside the dungeon with no way out, and they're outside of the dungeon, able to come back in and keep you stuck there. So if if you were going to try and push a red guild out of a dungeon, you had to be certain you were going to have the strength to bring your loot back out.
I like the idea though that if a red kills me on level 3, I know he's got to run a level or 2 to get out and make it get to opposition.
Yeah,
That healing idea
yeah.
from
I really like that. Whereas on Outlands, I mean, Luthier's, I've been a real kind of pain in his ear about this since server launch. I really don't like the dungeon gates. I don't think they should exist. But he's worried that the Reds would get trapped. One of my kind of compromise solutions was don't allow Reds to use the gates. And he said, yeah, but they'll just get caught at the dungeon entrance. Well, in my mind, that's fine. They're a Red. That's the risk they take if they don't want to come into the dungeon. If they don't want to risk getting killed, don't come into the dungeon.
I think the only thing now that happens is they've got a timer.
They just invisible. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're just invisible at the gate. That's exactly. On the odd time I go dungeon PK, that's exactly what we'll do. We won't run the whole way out.
So, what PK do you? If you don't like dungeon PK, what's the thing you're usually doing then?
What's PvP? So, I really like Corpse Creek contest. That's my kind of big thing. I mean, sadly, that's only once every 4 hours, but I know Luthier's has got some plans afoot to increase kind of PvP content for oranges. So there's the Sieges on Sieges system, hopefully a scoreboard system for factions as well. Although it'll be guild based rather than factions, is my understanding. So yeah, I like small group guild v guild action, which Outlands has sadly been kind of sorely lacking in. Corpse Creek contest is absolutely brilliant.
Well,
Kasha, not frequent enough.
Kasha talked about Corpse Creek contest that he didn't like it that much because it's supposed to be guild versus guild and ends up being alliance versus alliance. And
yeah, I mean, he has got a point to an extent, but in general, it's very small group versus very small group, and whether those groups are in 1 guild or 2 guilds or 3 guilds, I don't really mind. It's the best place for your guild to test itself against enemy guilds.
I love it as a concept. I think they're building on it for sure with their future content because sieges and what they're going to do with flashpoints, all that sounds like they saw Corpse Creek and wanted to expand that system to make it kind of like how PvP is on the Shard.
Yeah,
cool to see.
I think I mean, it really, it's another thing that's just hugely to the credit of Owen and Luthers. They've got such their ears to the ground of what players are asking for. The idea for Corpse Creek contest came completely from the mind of a player, Tristan from the Umbral Guild. He basically wrote the entire system. Luthers recognized a good idea, picked it up, ran with it, and there we are. I think from kind of inception of the idea, at least when it was first put on paper, he had it implemented within 6 weeks, which is just unbelievable.
Let's see. What else do we talk about?
Did you want to talk about Outlands before launch? I guess I've with Owen keep mentioning me as Outlands' his first player. Maybe that's the one thing I can offer kind of an interesting perspective on, really.
Yeah, I definitely saw the beta announcement, or not beta, the Outlands info dump forum thread like 10 months before launch, and
right.
read through the whole thing, which is a lot for a non-UO player to do, but I read the whole thing. Was immensely fascinated by the project. It just looked like it was going to be an awesome place to live in a world, So I started dialing in then, but I didn't really play until a month before launch.
Right.
So it sounds like you read the same thing I did, only you were there as fast as possible.
Yeah, I actually didn't know much about the design. So I first knew about the project in 2016. I played a server called Roll Poor.
I did play Real Poor. It was so 1 or 2.
This was 2. So I was really, really involved in that server. Although it was short-lived, it kind of I got the UO bug back like never before, really. Probably I was as addicted or more addicted as I was on OSI days. It was a fantastic server, but it never quite had the initial starting population. It couldn't cope with the inevitable drop off when a significant portion of the initial player base get bored. I think it started with such kind of like 200, compared to Outlands, which was reaching 2,000 at launch. So it died off very, very quickly. But it was a fantastic server. Second Age again, really, really good rule set. Totally custom map that was built by Admiralist, the admin.
I obviously have some weird fascination with custom because the same thing happened with me. I think I did Railport 1. They had a really cool map, very, very condensed, like unique rolling dungeon type of system too. Although for me, I macroed up, had a character, died a couple times and quit.
Yeah.
It was kind of learning that climate.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, to be honest, that's been my experience with most other free servers. I've tried 3 or 4 times, and I think Rollport, I'd never kind of had the same feeling that I had on OSI. And this, I think, it was somewhere around February to May 2016 that it was around, and I played a lot. I mean, I was I absolutely neglected my job and my girlfriend for this period. I mean, UO has some kind of strange hold on people. Be unhealthy at times. I'm sure a lot of people that will listen to this will recognize it.
The no lifer. You were no lifer TLX.
Yeah. Oh, seriously, that wasn't my finest hour whilst that server was active. I mean, I've fallen back into it a bit on occasion with Outlands, but I've kept the Rollport experience to mind to kind of keep myself from totally subsuming my life in UO. But yeah, anyway, so Owen was a map developer for Rollport. I'm not sure if he was ever kind of part of the development team or not, but he'd built a significant of their map. And I've always been kind of in love with the look of UO and even the original map. And so I think I was a very appreciative audience in Discord for Owen. He'd release some new content, and I'd be the one like going to check it out and taking screenshots and giving feedback. So me and him kind of like struck up a friendship over that. So he'd started showing me things that he'd built for this kind of server that he was hoping to do, and he had a coder lined up, but he wasn't sure if he was going to have the time to ever commit to a project. So I started talking to Owen at the time, like, well, I'm sure there's other people you can look at if your coder's not available. It seems crazy that your map would go to waste. So I kind of got dragged into the project just on the back of the fantastic map design and how keen Owen was.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He
you're the Owen hype man.
yeah. Well, I'll say it now. Owen's a great guy, and he's done an amazing job this project. So I will continue, as much as it may make people cringe and whatever. I will continue to be Owen's hype man, because he's basically saved UO, the greatest game in history. He's brought it back. So I'm going to be his fan club forever, just for that.
I'm with you on the art though. It's what drew me to the game, I think, and this project itself is just showcases it so well. All the custom and unique things to do with the water and some of the really cool dungeons.
He's found thousands of pieces of art, and he's commissioned pieces of art. I mean, he's struck up relations with European roleplay servers to share content. So the towns of Andaria and Cambria, I believe, they're borrowed from a Czech server called Andaria, and Owen traded parts of his map, which they then included on their map to allow him to include them. He's basically found everything that's ever been made map-wise for UO, and either imitated it or done a deal to trade to include it on Outlands. So when we look at the map, we really are looking at kind of like the final form of 15 years of people's UO map development.
That's a great way to look at it. I think you're absolutely correct too.
I was really lucky to get this early insight into it as it was building. So Owen put me to work. He kind of trained me up on a little bit of the map editor, which is called Centred. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, or it's really that well known, but it's a fantastic tool. It needs a little bit of time and effort to learn, and I certainly never learnt it to its fullest extent. But Owen put me to work on some of the most mundane tasks you can imagine. So building the coastline, just putting the coast tiles in. So I don't know if you can picture what the coastline looks like. So there's like a kind of like almost a tide,
So
a tide
Black
mark.
T should DM you for all of his coastline mistakes he finds.
Yeah, so I genuinely am responsible for all of them. That was my role, and I clearly didn't. It's actually much easier to see the mistakes in game than it is in the map editor. Sadly, sometimes you could have the two open at the same time. So Owen would have a server open that I could connect to actually in game, and you could see a mistake in there, but you can't see it in the map editor. So you've got to kind of run around the two simultaneously with one on one screen and one on another screen to spot them. And
interesting.
As you see, Black T is still finding loads of them. So, but yeah, I saw the map grow from a really basic kind of outline. Owen had built some towns, some of which he's included, some of which he's discarded now, and the kind of base outline of the continent. But apart from that, I've seen it grow from the ground up. This was before I knew anything about any mechanics for the server. So it turns out Luthier's had been working on something in the background for years, but him and Owen had only kind of talked about some kind of project in the future. There was no kind of like firm commitment that they were going to build a server together. It was just a hobby for the two guys, as far as I'm aware. And then Owen made the. I kind of urged him that it's time to get a community going. And then when he started the Outlands Discord, it was Phoenix, myself, Owen, and Luthier's for for a good few weeks, which is a great community. But yeah, I think when the community really took off, when they started seeing, Luthier started revealing some of the feet that he'd coded, Owen started posting screenshots of the map. So within months, there were hundreds of people in the server, in the Discord server.
Yeah, just that rolling avalanche, slow rolling avalanche. It's just going to take over the community, which is not surprising. I don't know where in that stage I was on board. I think there was just a long forum thread that had like feature after feature after feature. It's about 10 minutes before launch.
Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. Like, how is this even possible? How has he created it?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. His aspect system and the boat system, and
I didn't even manage to read a lot of these until after launch because it was just so much. Like, I still don't understand the boat system for ship people, as Owen calls them.
Yeah, the shit people. I got out there and tried to do it. It is too much for me. I don't know what I need to get into it. I need just less things going on. So I don't know that's the way they're going to go with it. But
yeah, I'm too one-dimensional in my playstyle. I log in PvP and talk shit in Discord. That pretty much sums up my UO existence. Quite sad, really.
Yeah, is there anything like unique in beta that you saw that maybe they were going to go one direction and went another, or just some weird trivia factoid that I don't know?
Yeah, so the town that is now Cambria was actually a completely different town that Owen had spent, I think, hundreds of hours building, and he just trashed it in the space of about 10 minutes one night. I'm not sure if he was drunk or what, but just deleted the whole thing from the map. So it would have looked completely different.
Interesting. And Cambria is Trinsic, right? Pretty much like I don't know how close is it to Trinsic. I have very little.
Very, very close stylistically, very similar layout wise. It's just far, far more detailed and more beautiful. And I mean, there's so many like secret underground areas in Cambria. Trinsic was very, very basic.
But was his original vision for Cambria like Horseshoe Bay? Because if not, I'm glad he built it. If it was rather.
Yeah, Owen's built some fantastic things, and I think he's probably the most talented map builder in UO history. But his original Cambria was not a patch on the one that the Andaria builders made. I think it was one of his earlier efforts, which is why he was so happy to trash it and replace it with something better.
Yeah, that's a very real thing where artists, game makers happens all the time where they build and build and build and make their game, and then they go back and redo the thing they started on. And what happens is they never release because you constantly going back and changing the last thing you did because you learned so much as
New
after doing
skills
it.
and yeah.
Like, I can't release it. I had to redo this, but then we need to redo that, and then you're just endlessly redoing things. Yeah, not surprised.
I spent them probably 2 years trying to convince him not to add as many towns because I didn't believe that the player base would ever warrant the amount of towns that he was planning on. But it turns out it really does. I mean, who thought UO could attract 2,000 players in 2018, 2019? But Owen was right.
It's still supporting all of it 8 months in, which is even more impressive. I think.
Yeah, he could probably add more towns, and they wouldn't. I was utterly wrong. My suggestion was 3 towns, no more. I was saying to him, you're going to really, really regret it if you add more. They're going to seem like ghost towns. New players are going to log in, not see anyone, then they'll just log straight out. But there's people absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, he loved making the map, so he made what he wanted. I think. And with Luthien.
I can see how he sunk so much time into the map editor. I was lucky enough to get this kind of preview, and although most of the things I did were kind of really mundane contributions to the map, like building coastline and building the outline of the caves and things like that, he promised me I could build a dungeon. So I think kind of the prior 20 years of playing UO went out in the design of Mausoleum. So that's my kind of Outlands claim to fame, that I built the majority of Mausoleum.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I can't claim total credit, but I like to tell everyone every opportunity that I have. I built this, but I mean, Owen did the finishing touches. Some of the detail work, like I don't know if you've seen this kind of like a dam area with a waterfall. He finished all the detail work on that. I mostly kind of did the layout, the basic decoration, and he did the finishing touches. But I enjoyed that as much as I've ever enjoyed playing UO.
Yeah, I think love it or hate it, he's got a signature, and I think players either like it or don't. The one tile pathways. There's some other stuff.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, a lot of the areas where that's an issue aren't the ones that Owen built. Owen is actually his style is actually quite grand. I mean, if you look at Prevalia, that's kind of a good example of Owen's style. He builds big with height and wide spaces. But a lot of the areas that he's ported in from some of the European roleplay servers, those are the areas people are finding frustrations with.
Oh yeah, it's interesting too. I know, like the new Mausoleum 4 that's coming. They see those one tile pathways and they get all giddy.
Do you mean Oshery 4? Or
yeah.
So. He's almost kind of like playing on Oshery, because Oshery is an Owen design from the ground up. So I guess he can't deny any responsibility for single tile pathways. Obviously it's partially him. Yeah,
by far my favorite dungeon.
Oh, it's beautiful. I think it's the pinnacle of the map personally. Looks wise, I think there's dungeons that play better, but looks wise, it's stunning. It's the best UO dungeon ever built.
There's a story there. It just feels like, I don't know. I want to run my D&D campaign inside of it.
Yeah.
Some of them is just like a pathway for mobs and experience, whereas this feels like a living dungeon where things are going down.
He was obviously inspired whilst building it. I don't think he'll be able to battle that as long as he tries. I mean, I learned a massive respect for the creative element of it as much as the actual skill in the building, using the tool, because I convinced myself after Mausoleum that I was some kind of genius map designer. and I tried to start, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 times on another dungeon, but I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the inspiration or the ideas. I would get a few rooms into it, and I think without a plan of what you're going to do is very, very hard to do. I think I said it earlier, but that's a quote from Owen. He said, all your 20 years of pent up UO inspiration all came out in Mausoleum, and I had nothing left in the tank after that at all.
That's cool. I'm glad you shared that story. Then I'll have to go through Mausoleum and then check out your. I don't hang out there much because those elder ramp spawns get too for me.
Yeah, it's a good place to get yourself killed as well. There's a lot of action there. No, I'm really pleased with how it turned out.
There's one room in there I really love. It's like the church area. Pretty cool spot. It's like you want to go there and hold some kind of sermon or something. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. So the influence for that is actually a Rollpore dungeon. There was a dungeon called Castra on Rollpore that was a really good place for PVM and PvP, and I was kind of trying to imitate that area when I designed that with the raised walkways.
Oh yeah, it's cool. So before we leave, what you mentioned the guild you run with? Which guild is that actually?
So I'm only kind of a new member to it, but I'm in the guild called Anarchy. Guild tag is A. So it's a guild from Renaissance, actually. I believe is their origin.
Oh, okay. Who'd you play with at launch?
So it was a group of friends. I've got a bad habit of dragging my my friends from OSI. So it was the IC guild that I ran on Europa and Drakenfels, kind of PvP PK guild. I dragged a few of them back. Sadly, every time I drag them back to UO, they're gone again within 2 or 3 months. I think I'm the only one who's kind of retained the UO bug to a point where I will play this game solidly for a long time. They enjoy the initial launch buzz, but it doesn't last for them. So it was the X tag, if you recognize that, EX.
Okay.
So that was predominantly my friends from OSI with a few people that I met in beta. We going to give roleplay a try, which was kind of like RP, PvP type, but never really
that flair.
Yeah, I'd never done that before. But I mean, we didn't really get off the ground. We made a fantastic start, placed a Moongate house, did everything we'd like to do, but everyone kind of drifted out of the game very, very quickly.
Which Moongate? Do you still have that house, or is that?
Trinsic. It's the one directly north. Sorry, directly east of the Moongate.
Okay.
But no, we sold that a while back. Actually, Genesis owns it now.
Yeah, that's probably a bad move to sell.
Yeah, I don't know. One of my guildmates, kind of everything he had was tied up in that. He hadn't placed another house because it was a total kind of guild effort. We didn't. No one had kind of personal gold. We pulled everything into property. One of the last people left playing, he didn't really have anything. So he wanted to cash in. So it kind of seemed only fair really that we enabled him to do it. And I don't have any interest in running vendors. There was only me and him left playing. I've got absolutely no interest in being a merchant. So it kind of seemed the sensible thing to do, even if we could have kind of held it for more money long term.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And outlasting players is a thing I know for real because I think a couple days ago, Stormy Daniels DM'd me and he said, "Man, I'm not coming back. Work is gone to the shit, and I'm never coming back." So he tossed me his mansion.
Wow.
And, I was like the last of the original Beard Brothers offshore. It's me and Nocturnal Llama still playing, but our original core 5 or 6, I was kind of it with Nocturnal, and he passed it over to me, and here I am sitting on this 30 by 30 plot that just force in the server.
That's probably worth like 50 million now.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to turn into the Beard Brothers Guild House. So I could not. I've been looking at this thing for a week now, like thinking how to decorate it. Like,
what do I do with this?
This is out of my UO.
Yeah, it's funny actually. You've done. You're in a similar situation to me. I would trade the gold and have having my friends back anytime, but I've actually done very, very well out of all my friends starting here and quitting.
I think with these games, it's better sometimes if you just meet like-minded players and sometimes make new friends. And when old friends can merge with that, it's better. so many similar experiences where I drag all my buddies into a game and they all quit, and then a lot of times I leave with them, and there's so many more experience to be left to had if you just keep at it sometimes. And I think we're going to be supported here.
Yeah, I agree. They've clearly got a long term vision for the server. There's no reason we're ever going to need another UO server. I think Outlands is going to be here whilst there's interest in UO, so we can make plans for the long term. It's taken me a while to find a group that sorted me. I joined a couple of PvP guilds before Anarchy, and good groups of guys. Either didn't fit me for playstyle differences or time zone differences, but it's nice now. I found a group that I can play the rest of my UO days with. It's a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are recruiting, but we can toss that link in the show notes too.
Yeah, it's very much a guild that doesn't recruit through anything other than invitation, which is I think quite an important thing for PvP guilds. If you're going to last long term, that's kind of the way we ran IC as well. If you're a strong enough guild, you can kind of cherry pick the best players from other groups and be very selective with people that ask to join. Yeah, they've built a really strong guild over a number of years.
Yeah, plus a core group that works together well can really accomplish a lot here. I think a guild just proved that time and time again here.
Well, Outlands has got an interesting PvP scene in that context. And a really important thing in modern UO that wasn't as important on OSI days is not just about having a good leader who brings people together. You need someone that can dictate things on the battlefield as well. Yeah, basically a good caller.
Yeah, that's I keep telling my buddies that too. Like, just make a call, any call, and so people will listen to it, and even if they make the wrong move, at least you made the call, and then there's something's happening.
You need someone to be decisive, and there's probably the highest skill involved in UO is, I always call them generals, kind of half mockingly, but it's actually true. There's a couple of really Dreadlord Bile from the Outlands Discord. He's Anarchy's main caller, and is probably the best one I've played with. In all my years of UO. There's Genesis, who's boys leader and caller.
If again, Genesis will ever return a DM from me. I think he's just. I think he hated my chill podcast. He hated my chill podcast. He's like, I don't think he's gonna give me the time of day, but I'd love to.
I think he's too busy. He's too busy playing Albion. Genesis is a good guy. He's fully into Albion at the moment, I think.
Oh, okay. There's definitely a crossover between the two games, I think.
A guild won't be successful as far as PvP goes now without a really good caller, as well as you kind of having a tight core that are together out of game as well as in game. You need at least one person in your guild that can dictate the terms on the battlefield. So SUP have got SUP You're Dead, who possibly the best really active guild leader and caller there is around at the moment.
Yeah, I got to hear it a little bit. I don't get in those comms often. I just kind of hang out in the Beer Brothers comms, but yeah, they're
a very different proposition to fight when he's there compared to when he's not there. So that's the kind of influence one player can have on fights.
It creates order from all the chaos, which is just immensely powerful.
Yeah. I mean, Anarchy are very lucky to have 4, maybe even 5 really like top level callers. So I think that's one of the things that makes guilds stand out.
Yeah, and I've got many years in Eve with the similar thing. You got to have backup callers and backup to backup callers, and
it's a real skill. I'm attempting to learn it. I've only ever been a kind of reserve caller previously, and I kind of feel like I'd like to try and pick up that skill. But you need this basic level of awareness that I'm perhaps not blessed with, the same level as the really, really good callers.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't hit up yet?
I think we've probably covered everything. Hopefully, I haven't rambled too much.
No, I think it's been fine. There's always so much the PvP scene here. I feel like I just scratch the surface every time we do this. So
yeah, I mean, I think the next patch is going to be what really kind of sets the tone. I think it's looking like Luthien has got a lot in the works with sieges and sigils, Corpse Creek contest changes, faction struggle changes, flashpoint changes, kind of marrying all those systems together. So there's something always going on. That's going to be the real focal point for the server.
Yeah, I would love to revisit this conversation once all that time to be on the server a couple weeks, and we kind of see where we're at as a community. Maybe get Akasha back on. We can.
I think he'd be a great person to discuss it with, or you could pick up someone like Gray or Pax Remain, or there's plenty of people out there actually.
Yeah, I want to see what that scene shakes out to be. Who the players? I like to bring on people too that kind of give back to the community in some form or fashion too. So we'll see where it all lands.
There's a lot of new guilds on the scene recently as well. Like it's changed drastically from 4 or 5 months ago. It's mostly different names. Anarchy were gone for a while. Money Guild are now gone. There's been a lot of changes. The one real consistent has probably been SUP actually, although they tend to engage in different PvP to Anarchy and the Z Guild that's now emerged. We're kind of Creek guilds, whereas they're more of a dungeon guild. They're probably the only guild that's been like consistently in the PvP scene from launch without any break.
Yeah, some are growing, some are shrinking. The Z Guild, right? That they're kind of like a collection of egos, which is pretty common in PvP scene. They've got some good guys and some not so good guys, shall we say. It'll be interesting to see if Tex, the GM, I'm not sure if he is, if he manages to hold that disparate collection of personalities together. I will be very impressed. Yep. I think you've had BB and LOD flirt with trying to get PvP personalities to hang out with us. That Vita with LOD for a little bit.
That really made me laugh seeing Vita that day. I said to a couple of friends on Discord, that's not going to last more than a few days. I think maybe it lasted 2.
Yeah, I always wish I could hear and see those conversations go down.
Well, I don't think there's anyone on the chill hasn't tried to recruit at some point. So it's only logical that he tried to get a couple of really good PvPers like Floob and Beaton on side. That would have been a huge asset to him, but there's also no way he was going to be able to tame them.
Yeah, there's definitely there's multiple parts happening here. You've got the guilds after boss content and Omni and how to support those and the interaction that happened in a dungeon over all of that. And you got, the PvP scene, people prepping for what's to come with sieges, and how all that intersects.
I think it's very difficult for a guild to be fully involved in both of those elements because they both require a significant time investment, which, is a great kind of advert for Outlands that there's this much to do. If you're a struggle and CCC guild, you can't necessarily dedicate your time to scouting all the bosses and defending bosses as well. But there's loads of action at both.
Yeah, it's kind of the whichever content you want, go seek it out and get it. And I think it's just going to get stronger with the changes they have planned.
Yeah, the one thing that is lacking in the PvP scene is it's very difficult to go out on a faction character or a guild ward character and find other oranges outside of a set event like CCC or faction.
Oh, so non-timer based. Orange PvP. Yeah, I could see that.
Exactly. And I think that's more a change in the player base than anything else. What is a group of 5 players going to do? Walk around Outlands for 2 hours hoping to find someone in the wilderness or in a town? Or are they going to go and get 2 hours of solid action in PUBG or League of Legends? I don't think that's a fault of Outlands. I think Luthien is probably doing the right thing in moving towards timed content like CCC and struggles, because then people know when to log in. But it is sad that means we kind of miss that dynamic, organic PvP that would happen between groups.
Yeah, I like PvP with a reason too, to have something to fight over.
Territorial control, risk versus reward type stuff. Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, bosses do present that here, I don't enjoy the bosses as much as I enjoyed the champ spawn scene on OSI for kind of reasons discussed earlier, really. But yeah, that they are the kind of dynamic PvP content.
Well, your guild farmed it. I know that we had our farmers and they're getting 1,000,000 gold out of that dungeon to get that
Yeah,
spawn, and
yeah,
maybe we're bad at defending them, but it just gives a little meaning to it. I'm not just running through a dungeon after some other guy for what reason, you know?
yeah. I think that the whole Omni system is fantastic in idea and implementation. It's yeah, the Omni and boss system's absolutely amazing that a guild could decide to lock a dungeon down, farm it, summon the boss, and completely control that dungeon and use red to stop anyone else coming in. It's great, and I guess that's what guilds like LOD and SUP and BB have been doing.
Yeah, and I think we may see similar type of the non-timer based things will come in with the sieges and Flashpoint, their Flashpoint revamp. I want to see
Yeah,
how that
so
plays out, but
yeah. I mean, my understanding is they're mostly going to be time based, but they're going to be very consistent. So it won't be a case of like you have now a 4-hour gap between faction struggles and CCC and the next one happening. I think, from my understanding, it's going to be much more frequent, which is
yeah, and you'll have a
which is
reason
great.
to engage with the content.
Yeah, share rewards between all of the systems. Yeah, it sounds really, really positive. I think anyone who has stopped playing Outlands because of lack of content will be quickly drawn back.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. We saw a surge of players come back for the PVM huge patch a couple months ago,
Yeah,
and I think it'd be similar with the PvP patch or the
yeah,
guild patch as they call it.
yeah. I think the change from the active skill gain to more skill gain brought a big influx of players as well.
All right, man. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. I was not disappointed. I knew this would be a great conversation. So,
Well, I hope so. We'll that will be decided when we listen back to it, I'm sure. Thanks for having me, man.
I appreciate it. Anyone out there, go to our website, insideoutlands.com, join our Discord, get updates, listen live if you catch us live, or leave us and our guest feedback. So, see you guys in 2 weeks. I have a big announcement. I think I have Luthieus. Pretty sure Luthieus is going to hop on and talk some UO with me. So
That is
he's
big.
excited. I'm excited. You guys should be excited. So see y'all in 2 weeks.